time for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. We're pleased to have Sarah Barnes-Humphrey on Boom and Bust for the first time. She is the founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain. She's an author, a podcast host, and an expert on logistics. Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's great to have you on. I guess maybe this is the first question, just again, context-wise and whatnot. If you could tell us a little bit about your own personal business and influencer journey, we'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in logistics and supply chain for about 25 years. I was a part of a family business in logistics. And when I was director of sales and marketing, I really wanted to be able to tell our brand story. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time. And I thought, well, hey, if Lewis Howes can have a podcast, why can't Sarah Barnes-Humphrey? And that's what really started the journey. And so I have a digital media company and supply chain. Back in 2016, when I started this, supply chain media wasn't even a term.
Right.
And so we've really been able to grow the podcast into a variety of different avenues.
And what sort of guests do you have on your podcast?
So we have a variety of guests. We do interview a lot of supply chain companies. So a lot of supply chain services companies, technology companies, they come on and talk about their founder journey. Why did they start? What was the reason why they wanted to start that company? What do they do? How do they help their customers? And giving us reasons as to why they exist. And then I also have a Woman in Supply Chain series. And so we feature women in supply chain a couple of times a month as well. And we also have thought leadership conversations on the hot topics in supply chain every week as well.
Excellent. Well, I want to get back to women in supply chain a little bit later on, but can you tell us about what sorts of current supply chain issues concern you right now? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, what's not happening right now? Everybody has been hearing about the Red Sea. We're almost over 100 days with what's happening over there. And that's disrupting supply chain in a variety of different ways. And it looks like it's going to be extending into other regions as well, which is going to cause some issues. The Panama Canal has had less water than usual. And so we haven't seen as many vessels going through the Panama Canal as well. But now it's opened up and we're seeing more and more vessels going through the Panama Canal. And domestically, you've got trucking, you've got train, you've got intermodal that's happening over here in North America. And there's been a bit of a less of demand on the trucking side in the last year or so. And so we've seen a lot of trucking companies or technology in trucking actually go bust.
Really? I wasn't aware of that. So is that a function of the economy slowing down, or is there some other factor at work for trucking?
Yeah, there's a few factors. During the pandemic, there was so much demand. We had so much supply that we needed to deliver. And so we saw a lot of trucking companies come out of that. And now that it's sort of normalized after the pandemic, there's not as much supply that needs to be delivered. And so we've unfortunately seen a little bit of a decline, not only because of the economy, but also because how we've normalized after the pandemic.
Gotcha. Let's talk about Canada. How well placed or poorly placed is Canada when it comes to supply chains right now?
Yeah, I think we're in a really good position. We've got a number of ports. We've got Halifax, we've got Montreal, we've got Vancouver. And I think the trade between Canada and the US is in a really good position. There's something called the de minimis into the US, which means the amount of goods that can actually travel from Canada into the US is quite high. And so a lot of American businesses are actually moving product into Canada on its way to the US.
Oh, really? And where is the starting point for that kind of product? Is it Canada or elsewhere?
No, it's usually overseas. So we're seeing that from Asia. They'll come in through the port of Vancouver and they'll move their product into warehouses in Vancouver or Toronto. And then they can move those orders, and they can be individual orders. They can consolidate them on a pallet and then move them across the border.
Gotcha.
So we're seeing a lot of consolidation.
Oh, that's interesting. We're having a conversation with Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. She is the founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain. basically, that's the topic. It's her topic usually. It is a sometime topic here at Boom and Bust. We're going to take a brief commercial break. We'll be back with our guest. Please stay with us.